Karma. I believe this is about the time that I really began to grasp the concept of energy. Energy is everything. Energy is thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, situations, places, circumstances, and intentions. It is contained in our bodies down to the cellular level and in our DNA. Energy is in absolutely everything around us, including inanimate objects, living or non-living. Energies can be passed from one person to another. It can be passed down from our ancestors. It can be brought with us from past lifetimes and taken with us to the next. It can be trapped, or it can move in time. Energy is flowing in, out, and through us all the time. Energy is also expressed in vibration, sound, color, scent, and light. Energy can be negative or positive. To take this one step further, if we as humans can realize that we carry these negative energies and can learn to let go of these negative energies, it opens a space for positive energy to flow through us and heal us down to the cellular DNA level. It can heal us on the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical level. By doing this, we can rewrite the direction and contents of our own lives. We get to rid ourselves of negative patterns that have kept us from being happy and productive. Marsha worked more on spiritual and mystical rather than emotional, which is what Catherine did. The first day that Marsha and I worked together, we talked about karma. We talked about generational karma and individual karma. We have all probably heard the biblical reference that the sins of the father carry down from one generation to the next for 7 generations. This is also family karma, aka generational karma. We also carry our own individual karma, not just from this lifetime, but from our prior lifetimes. Marsha proceeded to tell me that I had a lot of karmic work to do, and that I had karma on both sides of my family. On my mother's side, it was pretending that everything is just fine and delusional darkness. On my father's side, it was stubbornness and that we power through things to completion. I laughed when I heard the karma on my dad's side because it was so fitting. I did identify with the pretending everything's okay because I saw it in my mother. The delusional darkness, I had to look up online and investigate. I did see it in my mother. I didn't want to admit to myself that I also suffered from the karma of everything is just fine. But I have since started realizing that I too suffer from it. The definition of delusional darkness is an irrational belief held with conviction, even when exposed to forms of proof that would otherwise contradict the belief, trouble recognizing reality, a false belief, and jumping to conclusions. After reading the definition of delusional darkness, I knew then that my mother would never believe me even if I were able to give her proof of my abuse. In that session, it was also revealed to me that I had a lot of psychic pain, from this lifetime as well as from my past lifetimes. I also had been a very powerful witch in a couple of my past lifetimes. I was able to manifest through spoken word. In one of those lifetimes, I was a master in controlling my environment to the extent of being able to manipulate the elements. In one of those lifetimes, I had misused my powers, and it had a negative impact on 500 to 600 souls. Hurting those souls was my individual karma. I had also been killed for my powers in a couple of my lifetimes. In this session, Marsha told me that I still have those magical powers and that I am extremely powerful. She stated that I was so powerful that I had the equivalent to a PhD in magic. She said that my main spiritual gift in this lifetime is that of spoken manifestation. What does that even mean? Yeah. I get that what I say and the intentions used behind what I say are powerful and can manifest things. Using a power like this must be done with care. What do you do with that kind of information? Obviously, I want to stay humble and not let it go straight to my head. I don't want to have any more repercussions of karma using my magic powers. Like I said earlier in this book, things get weirder and weirder. While in a session with Catherine, she told me that I don't realize how much power I have. She said that when she first met me in the shop, she knew, and that it was rare to meet somebody with such power. She said that I had so much power that I should have a robe and a staff and be looking out over a valley somewhere. Again, what do you do with that kind of information? Is this something they tell everybody? I don't really know what kind of powers I have. I do know that I will most definitely be careful using them when I have them. Karma is a bitch. Who needs more bad karma? There was a lot said in that one session. The one thing that had been said that weighed most heavily on me was that I was the 7th generation of this karma. It was my responsibility to clean the slate, so to speak. I was the one to end the generational karma from both family lines. Why me? Why not somebody else? Why was I chosen to end all this family karma? I still don't know to this day. I had no idea who or what situation created this karma I was to clean up. Doesn't it make you think about the karma you have created in this lifetime and what you may have passed on to your future generations? It made me think about that. It really made me think of the repercussions of my actions. I worried about any impact that I may have created upon my kids. Marcia gave me a karma prayer to say. I knew intuitively the prayer needed to be said aloud and with great intent. Over the course of the next few weeks, I said the prayer repeatedly and addressed each family karma. I also focused on karmas that I may have created in this lifetime with people that I have known or know. It was very emotional work for me, and I tried to make space and time to do it. At times, I could sense that I hadn't done enough work on one or another of the karmas, so I would work on each until I felt I was relieved of it. Catherine and I went back to working on my deep emotional issues. I thought we had finished our investigation. I had a lot of built-up frustration. I felt upset, angry, and abandoned. I had a problem with speaking up for myself. My mother had told me during our brief union that I couldn't speak clearly and did not have a large vocabulary until I was 4 years old. I never recalled hearing this. I know it is something I would have remembered. I would have even been reminded of this when my eldest son Alex did not speak until he was 4. I am pretty sure that it would have come up in conversation while going through it with Alex. Later, in this counseling, I learned that I was able to communicate with the limited vocabulary I did have when I was 3. I was able to communicate what my grandfather had done to me. The fact that nobody listened to my story caused me frustration that carried with me since then. Catherine was very gifted spiritually, and she was able to see that I was born into this world with anger and rage that had been passed on to me whilst my mother was pregnant with me. My mother had been very angry when I was born. I don't know why she was angry. Catherine saw me as a baby in a walker. She saw that there was something wrong with me. She said that I was making jerking movements like epileptic seizures. She said I was crying, and not like just crying, but crying like a blood-curdling cry, that there was something wrong with me. She said there was something definitely medically wrong with me and nobody noticed. My parents had not noticed that I was having seizures. Nobody noticed that there was anything wrong with me. I asked where and what my parents were doing and if they could see what was going on. My parents were fighting with one another. I grew up with them fighting, arguing, and yelling at one another. I didn't realize that it had been going on since I was a baby. It was constant drama between them. I was abandoned even though I was right before their eyes. I was basically neglected because they were too busy fighting with each other to pay attention to me. Maybe that's another reason I didn't speak clearly until I was 4 and had issues speaking up for myself as an adult. It is possible that I felt that speaking up would cause upset and conflict. I always avoided conflict in my life. It's possible that these things made me feel unloved, unwanted, and that I didn't belong. I wondered what could have caused me to have seizures. It could have been the stressful environment I was living in, or it could have been something else. Either that night or one of the following nights after that session with Catherine, I woke up around 1 a.m. It had dawned on me that when Trisha did my Reiki, she had asked Devlin if I had issues with my ears. I told Devlin I had never had issues with my ears. Trisha had told Devlin that they came up as red and inflamed in the intuitive reading. At 1 in the morning, I was searching the internet about ear infections causing seizures in babies. Of course, there it was on the internet on multiple websites. Severe ear infections in a child can indeed cause a child to have epileptic seizures. I never recalled having an ear infection in my life. My brother Stephen had suffered a lot of painful ear infections as a child. I can't remember Greg having ear infections, but it is very possible. He had to have tubes put in his ears when he was around 6 years old. Another interesting part of Catherine's session with me was that I was surrounded by energy suckers, and I had been all my life. You know that Devlin was an energy vampire, which is another name for energy sucker. The people closest to me were energy suckers. Energy suckers drain our energy, and when our energy is depleted, it can lead to various symptoms. As a victim of an energy vampire, you can feel dizzy, depressed, irritated, confused, angry, tired, etc. You are probably wondering how to avoid an energy vampire. An energy vampire can take many forms. Energy vampires can be selfish and self-centered people who think the world revolves around them. They can be controlling, narcissistic, critical, angry, negative, and blameful. They often lack empathy for others. In my case, I was a people pleaser. The people with whom I had intimate relationships with were energy suckers. All my relationships were unbalanced. I gave more than I received. In other words, these people got more from me than I got from the relationship, which in the end left me depleted of energy. Reiki and chakra healing and balancing are forms of energy healing. Once I started receiving these healings, everything began to go more haywire with the people around me. People in my life seemed to get pushier and more demanding. I even had a client at one time think that I was their own personal realtor and that I should be available always just for them. Devlin's behavior was out of control. When you do energy healing, your energy rises and is no longer compatible with those whom you have been surrounded by. So one by one, the negative people and energy suckers around me left my life in one way or another. I reunited with my family, and then they had to go again. I think I had to be reunited with them so that I could put some of the pieces of my memory together, to see them for who they really are. This allowed me to not feel guilty for not speaking to them any longer. Regarding my husband and Parker came into my life for a reason, and that reason was to be the Pied Piper. He had to be attractive enough to lure me out of my marriage, but also repulsive enough to get rid of him later. I honestly believe that God used Parker to help put me on the path I am on today. I didn't have a lot of time to digest and reflect on all the information that I was receiving day to day throughout the counseling sessions. It was a lot of information to take in only a matter of days.